Welcome to another Cybersecurity Fundamentals webinar. My name is William Santiago, and today's topic is Virtual Private Network, VPN, for both personal and home. So let's get right into it. So virtual private networks, or VPN, are basically what we see here is just a depiction of being able to have some kind of privacy and security when connecting online, especially on a public network like the internet is. Back in the day, we used to have intranets and connected privately on specific secure networks, but these days we are constantly connecting on the internet, which is a public medium. As you can see here, the idea is basic that you connect. That's why it's one side is green and the other side is red, meaning that without the internet, without being protected, your computer has this IP address. Now, this IP address is a public IP address. Gets exposed to the internet, and everybody knows that you're coming from a specific region of the world. Anything in the path of that data transferring from one point to another that you're doing on the internet is clear text. Anybody can see it. When it's private or through the VPN, that data becomes unreadable. So it's secure. And on top of that, you can have different locations where you actually exit, and people who are looking at that data will see that you're coming from a completely different location than you really are. And we'll give you an example. I'll show you how that works on an example at the very end of the video. So VPN is for security and privacy. That's the first thing that we want to have VPN for. It's also to hide, like you see there, you hide that IP address. IP address being think of it as like a phone number that you have on the internet, to be exposed to the internet. And also protects yourself from data surveillance and eavesdropping. So these are the basic steps. Why do we want, the reasons why we want to have VPN. And you also block unwanted connections. So certain connections that are not needed, these tools help in mitigate this as well. You can also browse anonymously. That's another feature people do this for. But this is not the main reason that VPNs are useful. Is actually not to be anonymous. You can still be expose yourself out there, say, hey, this is who I am, but you just don't want to tell everybody, the whole world, that's what you're doing. So it's back to the control of the users. In terms of security, it's a secure VPN that sends your internet traffic through this encrypted VPN tunnel, so your passwords, sensitive data remain safe, even over public, untrusted internet connections that we talked about. In terms of privacy, you keep your browsing history private. Most VPN providers do not log user activity or share data with third parties. So that's something you have to look at, specifically when you're connecting. Is that to whom VPN service you're connecting? They could be logging all your activity, and eventually we'll talk about that type of privacy, depending on your provider who's giving you whether it's a third party or it's yourself, and we'll talk about exactly how that works as well. Now, there's two types of VPN. You got a personal and home VPN. So a personal VPN connects the user to a secure remote firewall to access a private network controlled by a private service paid for by the user, right? So this is exactly what personal VPN is. The added encryption ensures that security is not compromised, etc. This is an example of how this works, but basically the user, you would be over here, and you would establish a connection. This is what we call the VPN connection. You do this connection through the internet, so this is a public mean that everybody can see what's going on. So the traffic is going through this tunnel, right? And this tunnel means that everything in that data tunnel is encrypted. In other words, see, if the eavesdropper is on the internet here trying to capture this data, which is public, they will understand, they will see just garbage going through, or unreadable data. that finally tunnel or that encryption ends in your private controlled network, which you're paying for. It's a service that you pay, right? So once you get out of here, now this could be anywhere in the world. Once you get out of here, then you start going into the internet again. So it's kind of like you're coming out from a secure location from the internet, and then you start going to your Dropbox, your Google Drive, your iCloud, wherever you want to go, and you actually realize that that's what the surveillors, whoever is looking at that network, which is the internet, they will see you coming from here versus coming all the way from over here. Now, a business VPN gives a little bit more robustness to this whole setup, in that the enterprise VPN connects the user to a secure remote firewall, same idea, to access private corporate network. Now you're introducing yourself into, think of it as you're going into the office, right? The added encryption ensures the security is not compromised, same idea there. But it's a slightly different, because the user now is connecting, again, through the internet, establishes this VPN, and it goes to the internet. There's, obviously the hackers will be able to see that, same idea here. But the tunnel ends at your corporate company, or your business, or your office. And that's where the tunnel ends. And then from that point on, it's like you're actually in the office, and start, surfing the internet and within your company. So the intranet that you had, or some office servers that you have, that's what you access for. Now from this point on, you could repeat the same process by having a firewall here that gets you back into the internet, and you start surfing on that side as well. So that's one way. But the key here is that in terms of a business VPN, the vulnerability shifted over to the user. So if the user is compromised, so if the user itself is compromised, then the data that user has access to, which is a corporate company data, gets compromised as well. So it is very important that this is not a silver bullet that says, okay, I'm protected, all my company data. There's other steps and other security measures that you take to protect that data as well. But at least this gives the users the ability to remotely connect, like we had through the pandemic, everybody goes remote. This is the best way to connect and establish connection, because it's kind of like virtually you are at the office versus home. Now there's all kinds of providers that provide this type of connectivity. You got private internet access, is a very popular one. Proton Vpn, Express VPN, there's a bunch of others out there. The difference here is that you want to make sure that, first of all, they don't log your data. And the reason that I say this is because recently there was a judge order or a warrant on Proton VPN, Proton Email actually. It's a company that has two products, Proton VPN and the actual Proton Email. So you're kind of similar to Google Gmail or Microsoft 365 email services. Same idea here. The difference is that Proton encrypts the data that's stored on the server. Proton VPN encrypts the data in transit as it moves through, right? Now the two combined create very good security, but the warrant went to the email. So the users that was targeted, that the security, the regulators, not the regulators, but the police were trying to, had an injunction from the judge saying, we need the contact of the inbox. What happened was that Proton could not give that data to them because obviously it was completely encrypted. So even though they stored it in the servers, they couldn't provide that data that the authorities wanted. What they could provide was where the metadata, how the connections were back and forth, the logging of the connections, which country was with IP address, or like that telephone number, where they were coming from. So Proton was able to provide that for those specific case. And in that case, that user did not have a VPN at all. They did not have the Proton VPN service. And they made it clear that if that user had that Proton VPN service, which specifically says we don't provide that metadata. In other words, we cannot. The Proton VPN and most of these other VPN, like private internet access, and some others out there do comply by regulatory. They can provide you with the logs in terms of the email side, but in the VPN side, they actually don't. They delete that data for all the users. That's their policy, right? Of course, you're trusting them because there's always the possibility that that data does not get deleted. So, but the point is, there's two sides to this privacy issue. As an example, as an example of how this would work is when you have the software running on your computer, you will see that this is a snap, and I'll show you a picture of how this works. But on your computer, you would have, in this case, private internet access, and Proton Vpn also do the same thing. You'll have a big button that presses, and you pick the VPN server, and then the server, once it's connected, it says, oh, you're coming out of Florida, and you can put the IP address where you originate. In other words, the information about where you currently are, and the VPN is where you actually end up coming out of, and it basically says, hey, you're connected. This is on a computer itself. In terms of on a VPN itself, for personal use on a mobile smartphone, this would be very similar. So you would have the same type of feeling between being connected on the computer versus being connected on the PC. Now this is for the UX. This is how the user experience is all about. But just to give you an idea, and we'll go into this example. I'll show you how it works from my phone itself. The main ones out here are private internet access is a very well recommended VPN third-party provider, and Proton Vpn is another one that's now the third one that I wanted to talk about is WireGuard. WireGuard is an actual standard that's it's almost about to become the de facto standard for the military and for a lot of governments. It's not there yet, but this is going to be an upgrade of the protocol that's been around for maybe 40 or 50 years. Open VPN standards, IPsec, and all those other VPN standards are out there. So WireGuard has taken all the benefits of all those standards and condensed it and make it very simple to implement, because most of the complexity comes behind the scenes. The users don't realize it, but there's a lot of complications when it comes to configuring VPNs with a traditional IPsec, for example. WireGuard simplifies all of this. So the reason I bring WireGuard is that you can have WireGuard connected on a node on the internet somewhere that you set up, or a remote location. You connect to that just like you do with the third-party services, and then it's coming from that point on. Benefits from that is that you control that computer. So even if it's, let's say it's there's an order to get the logs out of there, you could ahead of time know that you're deleting these logs, or you're not even keeping the logs. So that's a benefit of running your own WireGuard. The bad thing about that is that you always, unless you have multiple sites, you're always connected to the same site, because obviously you have to pay for that service yourself. You have to have that computer running that you're connecting to, or that node. But you would probably have the same IP address exposed to the world. So you might leave some kind of, in terms of privacy, you leave some footprint. So it's just a trade. What would you like to? More privacy, less privacy, more security, less security, etc., etc. So there's all the flavors that you can do out here. Some of the VPN tools that come in handy, I have two of them here, is IPleak.net and IPChicken. This is basically, if you want to know your IP address, you go to this site. There's a lot of them out there, but you can go to this specific site and go to IPChicken, and they'll give you the IP address. It's like looking at what's my current phone number, kind of like that, basically. You can do this from your phone. You can do it from anywhere you can surf the internet. And the IPleak.net gives you a little more details about where you are, what are you exposing, because when you start surfing the internet, you're putting your fingerprint out there. You're giving yourself to the browser. Basically, the browser is giving that to wherever you're browsing, wherever you connect. They can see the operating system you're running, the browser you're using, where you're coming from. There's a lot of information. So IPleak just gives you that information. Say, this is what you're exposing to the world, right? So this is a very good site. These are two sites, kind of tools of the trade. So now that we've done that introduction, let me just jump over to, this is Proton VPN. So this is the actual website for Proton VPN. And you can log in basically and connect. And once you connect, you can then set up your which countries you're going to be connecting to and all these other things, and you can run it from the PC. It's kind of like going to your account and setting it all up, right? But what I wanted to show you here is, and let me move the video up here, is on the screen you'll see that this is my mobile phone. So as you can see, here's my mobile phone, and I'm gonna show you, in this case I have Proton VPN, I got Molvat, another service provider, and I have WireGuard. WireGuard is also another client. So WireGuard is very simple. Once you configure it, you go up here to where it says remote access, you turn it on, and you're connected. But the one about Proton VPN is a little bit more handy because it gives you all of these countries, see? So the previous one was just giving you one server that you connect to. But in the case of Proton VPN, you have all the countries. So for example, let's say we wanted to connect to Argentina. You click on Argentina and you have a list of servers that are out there, and depending on the load, because there's more people connecting to the service, you know the load. Okay, I'm going to connect to Buenos Aires, for example, here, and I'll just click on it, and it starts to establish that connection. And you can see on the screen, it's connected, provides other services like kind of like a virus, antivirus, or they call it NetShield, similar service. It tells you the protocol you connected, in this case WireGuard. The IP address, again, this IP address. So if you went to the website from your mobile phone and you're trying to go, IP chicken or whatever, it will give you the same IP address. Tells you the server, the load, the volume of that specific server, and some basic graphics here. And then you disconnect and you're not connected anymore, right? So you can go all the way to, for example, United States, and in the United States you can pick per start with U.S., Florida, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, Texas, and so on and so forth. So it's just this is a tool, and it tells you it's the bottom. It says not connected. You're unprotected. If you want to connect, then you connect. And in this case, I had a profile set up, so I'm connecting now from Puerto Rico. So I'm actually coming out of Puerto Rico. This tells the IP address that's from that server in Puerto Rico. So that's about it. For this webinar, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see what brings the next week. So stay tuned. Thank you.